That front face is not asking for your attention. It is demanding it. Black-on-black paneling, gold-lit LED signatures that cut across the nose like a war mask, and a shield emblem sitting dead center. This concept communicates one thing before it moves a single inch. This is not a motorhome. This is a statement. Before we go any further, full transparency up front. What you are looking at is a fictional concept generated by AI. No factory, no production line, no showroom, no delivery date. Pure imagination. And that is exactly what makes it worth a serious breakdown. Because when you remove real-world constraints, you see what design could actually become. Here is what we are covering today. We are going to walk the exterior, because there is more going on across these panels than you might notice at first glance. Then we are going inside, and I want to talk about what the glass line on this thing is almost certainly hiding. After that, we hit the powertrain logic, and we close with a verdict, including one decision on this concept I would personally change, and I want to know if you agree. Stay with me, because there is one detail on the rear section of this vehicle I am genuinely saving for later, and when we get there, I think it is going to reframe everything you thought about the proportions. Let's start at the front, because the front of this concept is doing more design work than most full vehicles manage. The face is built around a diamond mesh grille structure, deep, dark, almost textile in its finish, flanked by angular LED running lights that sweep upward and outward in a shape that reads more fighter jet than motorhome. That upward sweep is intentional. It creates visual tension. It makes the vehicle look like it is already moving while standing completely still. You feel that tension before your brain has processed why. The shield emblem in the center is a deliberate power statement. It is not branding in the traditional sense. There is no manufacturer behind this. Remember, it is the designer using heraldic language to position this concept in the same psychological space as Rolls-Royce or Bentley. Crest equals legacy. Even on a fictional vehicle, that communication lands. Now step back and look at the side profile. This is where the concept gets interesting and, honestly, where a few questions start to form in my mind. The roofline is a double-deck silhouette. You have got a primary roof level and then a raised dormer section running along the upper deck. That dormer is not decorative. Based on the proportions, it is adding somewhere in the region of 18 to 24 inches of headroom to a specific section of the interior. If you have ever stood inside a standard Class A motorhome and felt the ceiling pressing down on you, that extra 2 feet changes everything. It is the difference between living in a space and tolerating one. The glass-to-body ratio on the side is exceptional. There is a floor-to-midline window band running across most of the habitable length, and you can actually see warm interior lighting glowing through it in this render. That is not an accident. The designer lit the interior to show you what life inside looks like. Light, open, residential. That is a lifestyle promise built into the exterior. The surface finish is what I want you to pay attention to now. This is not matte black. This is not gloss black. This is something closer to what the automotive world calls a liquid mirror finish in a deep charcoal, almost graphite in certain light, almost chrome in others. Light moves across these panels differently depending on angle. In a showroom setting, this vehicle would look different from every position you view it from. That is design intelligence. That is a finish that earns its price point. The stance. Triple rear axle. Let that land for a second. 3 axles at the rear means this concept is imagining a gross vehicle weight somewhere in the 50,000 to 70,000 pound range. That is not a motorhome. That is a land yacht. The wheels are blacked-out multi-spoke units, low profile, wide footprint, which signals that the designer prioritized visual aggression over off-road practicality. This vehicle was designed for highways and private estates, not for gravel tracks. And that brings me to something I want to come back to in the verdict, because that wheel and axle choice tells us something important about what this concept is and what it is not. The exterior closes with this. Somewhere at the rear of this vehicle, based on the dormer height and the overall length, which I am estimating at roughly 45 to 50 feet. There is a section the render has not shown us. A rear quarter that the angle deliberately hides. I have a theory about what is back there. We will get to it. Let me tell you what the exterior is telling us about the inside. And this is where the detective work gets interesting. Start with the ceiling. That raised dormer section on the upper profile, combined with what appears to be a 13 to 14-foot overall height, we are looking at interior ceiling clearance of 7.5 to 8 feet in the primary living zone. For context, a standard residential home ceiling is 8 feet. This concept is matching residential proportion inside a moving vehicle. That is not easy. That is an engineering commitment to not compromising the living experience for the road. Now let me walk you through the zone layout, because based on the length and the window placement, I can map this with reasonable confidence. The cockpit zone occupies roughly the first 8 to 10 feet. That panoramic wraparound windshield, which you can see curves well into the roofline at the front, creates a forward visibility envelope that is closer to a commercial aircraft flight deck than a standard driver's cab. Sitting in that seat, the road ahead would feel less like driving and more like piloting. The digital instrumentation in a concept at this level would almost certainly be a full-width curved display. Think Mercedes Vision EQXX influenced, with predictive route mapping, live solar generation data, and autonomous highway mode engagement sitting in the driver's field of view without requiring head movement. Behind the cockpit, you have what I believe is the lounge zone. And this is where that floor-to-midline glass band pays off for the person actually living inside. The light coming through those panels in the afternoon would fill this space with the kind of natural illumination that makes any room feel twice its actual size. You are not looking at your phone in here. You are looking out at the world. That is a quality of life decision the designer has built into the architecture. The kitchen placement, based on the midsection of the vehicle, would sit behind the lounge zone. In a concept at this price positioning, you are imagining induction cooking surfaces flush with the countertop, a refrigeration system closer to Sub-Zero than a standard RV fridge, and storage philosophy that borrows from yacht design. Every cubic inch considered, nothing wasted, nothing visible that should be hidden. The sleeping quarters push toward the rear, and here is where that dormer section becomes critical. If the designer has used that height to create a lofted sleeping zone above the rear mechanical bay, you are waking up in a space with genuine ceiling clearance, potentially a skylight or a window looking directly to the rear. The position over the rear axle is the standard compromise in long wheelbase motorhomes. The question is always whether the designer has isolated that axle noise well enough that you actually sleep. In a concept this resolved, I am going to assume acoustic insulation has been taken seriously. The bathroom, and this is the engineering problem I find most interesting in any motorhome concept, sits somewhere in the middle to rear zone. The question with a vehicle this wide and this long is whether the designer has allowed for a walk-in wet room, or whether they have compromised down to a combined wet bath. Based on the overall width, I am estimating 102 inches, the maximum U.S. highway width. There is enough real estate here for a separated bathroom with a genuine shower enclosure. Not a wet bath, an actual shower. That is the difference between roughing it with luxury finishes and actually living without compromise. The smart systems in a concept at this level follow a logic the real industry is only beginning to catch up to. A centralized AI hub that learns occupant patterns, adjusting climate before you ask, pre-cooling the sleeping quarters 30 minutes before typical sleep time, managing solar generation against projected usage for the next 24 hours. This is not science fiction. The Newmar King Air is already moving toward this. This concept just imagines it fully realized. Here is what living in this space would actually feel like. You close the door behind you. The outside world drops away, not because it is blocked, but because the acoustic treatment has removed it. The light is warm, not harsh. The ceiling is high enough that you forget you are moving. You are not camping. You are not in an RV. You are in a residence that happens to have a highway underneath it. If this concept were ever engineered for reality, the powertrain conversation starts in one place. Full electric is the only logical choice at this positioning level. Here's why. The buyer this vehicle is designed for is not making decisions based on fuel cost. They are making decisions based on experience. And the experience of a diesel coach, the vibration, the noise, the exhaust, is fundamentally at odds with everything the interior is trying to deliver. Electric eliminates that contradiction. Silent propulsion, zero vibration at cruise speed. The interior experience the designer is promising can only actually be delivered by an electric drivetrain. Battery capacity for a vehicle this size, and at the weight I estimated earlier, around 50,000 to 70,000 pounds loaded, would need to be substantial. In a near-future production scenario, you are looking at something in the 600 to 800 kilowatt-hour range. For reference, a Tesla Semi runs on roughly 900 kilowatt-hours and delivers 500 miles of range at weight. Scale that logic to a luxury motorhome traveling at 65 miles per hour, and you are looking at 250 to 350 miles of real-world range. That is a full day of driving before you stop, which is exactly how most luxury motorhome owners travel anyway. The solar roof situation on a footprint this size is genuinely interesting. A 45 to 50-foot roof at full width gives you approximately 400 to 500 square feet of solar surface. With current N-type high-efficiency panels generating around 250 watts per square meter, you are looking at a solar array capable of generating 9 to 12 kilowatt-hours per hour of peak sunlight. That does not charge the drive battery meaningfully, but it does run every interior system, climate, lighting, appliances, smart tech, indefinitely while stationary. The concept of parking this vehicle for 3 days off-grid and never touching a shore power connection becomes entirely plausible. Dual motor configuration on the front and rear axle gives you torque vectoring, meaning the vehicle can distribute power individually to each wheel. At 50,000 pounds, that is not a performance feature. That is a safety and stability feature. In crosswind conditions on an open highway, torque vectoring is the difference between a vehicle that feels planted and one that requires constant correction. Autonomous highway mode at this size and weight is closer than most people think. The commercial trucking industry is already deploying Level 3 autonomy on highway corridors. A luxury motorhome at this price point adopting that same technology in the next 5 to 8 years is not optimistic. It is inevitable. Here is my honest take. What this concept does genuinely well, the exterior cohesion. From the front face, to the side profile, to the surface treatment, every decision is speaking the same design language. That is rare. Most concepts have one strong element, and everything else is filler. This is resolved from every angle. That takes design discipline. What seems impractical? The triple rear axle at this width. 3 axles means a turning radius that makes urban environments nearly impossible. The buyer this vehicle is designed for: private estates, national park destinations, premium RV resorts, can probably avoid most of those constraints. But it is a real-world limitation that the design is not solving. It is just ignoring it. The most impressive single detail, that floor-to-midline glass band on the side. It is not the flashiest element. The LED work on the front face will get more attention. But that glass band is the decision that most improves the daily lived experience of the person inside. It earns the most points in my analysis. The one thing I would change, the wheel choice. Blacked-out low-profile rims look aggressive and they work aesthetically. But they communicate sports car when this vehicle should be communicating private jet. I would replace them with a larger diameter, polished or brushed finish multi-spoke. Something that signals quiet confidence rather than performance. The rest of the design earns a different kind of wheel. What this concept signals about where luxury mobility is going. The line between a residence and a vehicle is dissolving. The real industry is already moving toward 14-day off-grid capability, AI climate systems, silent electric propulsion. This concept just imagines all of it arriving at once. Fully resolved, no compromises, no budget constraints. That is the value of fictional design. It shows you the destination before the road exists. It is a concept. It is fictional. It is AI generated. And it is still one of the most considered motorhome designs I have broken down on this channel. Now here is what I want to know, and I want a real answer in the comments. The solar roof on a concept like this, or a larger drive battery for longer range? Which would you actually prioritize for 2 weeks off-grid? Solar keeps you running forever, but drives shorter. Bigger battery drives further, but you eventually run out. Drop your answer below. If this kind of design analysis is what you come to YouTube for, the breakdown, the honesty, the detail, subscribing is the most efficient way to make sure you do not miss the next one. New concept drops every day on this channel.